Welcome to the meeting of the Audit Committee. The purposes of the meeting is to establish evaluation factors and approve the format of a request for proposal for audit services. Under Chapter 218 of the Florida Statutes, the city is required to have an audit annually. We have had an audit for the last 5 years by our present auditing firm under a 3-year agreement with 2 years renewal at our option. So we're at the end of that 5-year period, and under the state statutes, as I understand them, we need to go out for proposal once again and evaluate firms. So the first thing I'd like to do is go over the timetable for the auditor selection process, which is in your binders. It's on page 2 of the first tab.
Mr. Chairman, would you like for me to do a roll call real quick?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Councilwoman Caramba?
Here.
Mayor Simmons?
Here.
Committee Chairman Corey?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ann. The proposed timetable is on page 2 of the first tab. What we're attempting to do is to put out a request for the for proposals by June 26th of this month. Proposals are due the 23rd of June and will be reviewed by staff and submitted to the audit committee meeting for another date, another meeting on July 27th. The audit committee will meet to provide a ranking of the firms during the week of August 17th. And we will provide a recommendation to City Council as to who we recommend to be the auditors going forward on September the 3rd. Let me just quickly review the scope of the services and reports to be issued. If you will turn to page 2 of the draft RFP that Ann has prepared. The scope of services are set forth therein. We'll have a comprehensive annual financial report, commonly called the CAFR, which will be used to meet our obligation to the citizens and residents of Bonita Springs. And then we'll also have a single audit, which will meet the requirements of both state and federal grant authorities. This is something that we have been doing now, at least for the last year, maybe before that, since we have received federal grants, I think for the first time, beginning with the monies that were distributed by FEMA for recovery from Hurricane Irma. Again, the reports to be issued are set forth towards the bottom of that page. These are the same reports that we have received for fiscal year 2019. And I mentioned previously the term of the agreement, 3 years with mutual agreement with 2 one-year extensions. So with that, I'd like to enter into a discussion of the evaluation factors. Under 218 of the Florida Statutes, the evaluation factors shall include, but are not limited to, the ability of personnel, experience, ability to furnish service, and such as may be deemed by the audit committee to be applicable to its particular requirements. It's important to note that if compensation is one of the factors, and it usually is, it shall not be the sole or predominant factor used to evaluate proposal. In the past, when we had bid the audit out before, experience and expertise played 90% of the role in the evaluation criteria, and compensation or cost of the audit played a role of 10%. We'll get into what other cities do shortly, but that's been our criteria that was used the last time we put this out for audit. 218 says that the compensation must be reasonable. And on page 67 of the first tab, it sets forth in the Q&A that the likelihood of obtaining a high quality audit at a reasonable price substantially increases with competition. Therefore, the audit procurement process should aim at fostering a healthy competition under potential audit firms. And so one of the things we want to make sure of is that the RFP that's been drafted and is being used will foster that competition, and that we have a good number of responses to the RFP once we issue them. And like I say, has drafted a sample or a recommended RFP. There are, I think, 3 sections relative to what we're trying to do today. One is the mandatory qualifications that are set forth therein. Things like licenses, qualified personnel, peer reviews, and so forth. They fall under the mandatory qualifications just to be able to bid on the audit. The RFP right now assigns 0 points to those. They're all important qualifications, but they have to be met by every bidder who is going to propose on the audit. Again, technical qualifications, firm and assigned staff expertise and experience counts for 90 points. That also includes the audit approach. How will the audit firm approach the audit of the city, as well as the single audit requirements? Will their degree of testing of underlying transactions be sufficient in our view? And do they have the experience and qualifications to carry out a testing plan, and are there procedures in place to review the work that's done by staff, by professionals with a higher level of experience and expertise? So that the technical qualifications are 90%, and the fee qualification is therefore 10%. Now, I don't have my note as to what the fees were for the past audit. Roughly, if I remember right, and Ann, you can correct me, it was, I think, around $33,000 for the CAFR audit, and then perhaps another $5,000 or so for the single audit. So that's generally the size of the cost that we're going to be incurring. I've listed on this handout the evaluation criteria used by other cities. We're consistent with the city of Sanibel. We're also consistent with the city of Estero, but Estero doesn't disclose the points they've assigned in the RFP. Other cities break down a little more in terms of the overall expertise section, assigning points to different pieces of it. Some cities give a local vendor presence preference, a small amount of points for that. But in general, you can see from the handout what other firms have done. I've taken a look at what the other cities have done. I've taken a look at the RFP myself. I did take the liberty to ask Derek to draft a section, an additional requirement in the RFP from what Ann had drafted, and that was to require or to give us the option of doing due diligence and deciding to move away from the contract should there be a change in the audit partner responsible for the engagement, or if the firm that we select merges with another firm, and because of that merger, we find that there's going to be a change in personnel or a change in audit approach. We want to have that option if there's a material change in the firm that's providing services to us. We've run into that in another organization I'm involved in, both with a lawyer who changed firms and with a CPA firm itself. And in both cases, we chose to stay with our lawyer and with our CPA, and ended up moving to a different firm than the one that we were using at the time. But we felt comfortable that we made the right decision to stay with the people we were used to working with. The RFP itself that Ann has drafted is consistent with the RFP issued in 2015, except that it's now consistent with the federal requirements for a single audit. And it's therefore, we need to include minority-owned firms in the bid process because of federal grants awarded to the city. The RFP is also consistent with the 2017 amendments to Chapter 218 of the Florida Statutes. So for purposes of this meeting, I'll make a motion to approve the RFP for posting on the city websites, mailing to vendors listed on in the other information tab, which is the last tab in your binder, and publish the RFP in the appropriate newspapers. So with that, I will take any questions.
And Chris, I'll second that motion, by the way.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a couple of comments here.
Sure.
If we are going to waive the local preference in our procurement ordinance, we do need to have this RFP go before council for consideration and approval, and I'm prepared to do that, to have that on Wednesday's agenda. And if the committee agrees with the wording that you've proposed for those changes from that previous document that was distributed.
So what Ann's suggesting is we need two decisions in support of this motion. One is, are we putting the, I'll call merger or transfer language in that Councilman Corey pointed out? And two, do we wish to add criteria in or scoring for local preference, or do we wish to keep that out in order to garner more results?
It would be my hope that we would not give preference to local firms. For one, I think there's only one firm, and I'm not sure that they're engaged in governmental auditing, for one thing. Our current firm is in Punta Gorda. And I think the other firms, as I'm looking at this, are spread around Southwest Florida, all the way from Tampa down through Naples. The minority-owned firms are in blue, and there are none of those in Bonita Springs. So it would be my recommendation that we not give a local preference, because there's just only, as far as I know, there's only one CPA firm in town. And I think they are primarily tax practitioners. Any comment?
We did not have that local preference operating when the previous one was contracted.
Right.
And
But as I understand it, we have added a local preference into our procurement procedures since the 2015 RFP went out. Is that correct?
No,
I am not.
Local preference has been in since 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
However,
But
if there were no responsive local, then just would have been no points assigned.
Right, and I just want to point out, not because I tend to agree with you, Chris, about the local preference. I just was going to point out, though, we do have under the proposed vendor list, Bonita Springs, Naples, Fort Myers, Punta Gorda.
Well, I interpreted local preferences to be local preference for Bonita Springs firm. Now, maybe I'm too narrow in terms of the way the local preference is applied.
Local preference is Lee or Collier County and any municipality within.
Oh, okay.
So it wouldn't be the 7-county regional Southwest Florida, but it would be, since we're right on the border with Collier County, Collier or Lee.
Well, again, I would assign no points to it. I think we need to try to get the best firm we can get, and we need to make sure that we are not penalizing unnecessarily the minority firms, since there are no. I don't think there's a minority firm in the Lee or Collier County, and should they elect to propose, I'd hate to have them start in a negative position with respect to the points.
I agree.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor of the RFP being issued, say aye. Or I guess we need a roll call vote.
we could wait.
Yeah. Okay.
Councilwoman Caramba,
Aye.
Mayor Simmons,
Aye.
Committee Chairman Corey.
Aye.
Thank you.
I don't think there's anything else that is covered by our adjournment. I mean, by our agenda. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We're
Great
done.
job.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.